Next time you meet me in Gate City, check out Soul Sisters.
Wait. Oh, Cody Pope. I know Cody Pope.
Our friend is Cody and we not having a good day.
Musician.
Yeah.
Yo, happy Monday, everybody. What's going on? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cody Central. I'm really excited about how the year is going so far. We've got an exciting episode tonight. I got my friend DiPietro who's going to be talking to me. We're going to be talking about motorcycles. We're going to be talking about art. We're going to be talking about life, all sorts of stuff. I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation we're going to have. As always, I'm going to run through some of my favorites. Big shout out to all of our YouTube people that are jumping in. Jen, I see you. What's going on? Shout out to Keith watching from Facebook. What's going on, Keith? Thank you to everybody that's tuning in. When you get in, let us know where you're watching from too. What city and state are you in? And let's dive into some stuff. So my music of the week choice this week is the album. It's called Long Way Home. It's from Ray LaMontagne. It just came out in 2024. So Long Way Home is the 9th studio album and the first independent release from Nashua, New Hampshire born folk rock and soul musician Ray LaMontagne. For over 2 decades, he's carried songs of soul that are very similar to like Otis Redding, Bob Dylan, Nick Drake, Tim Buckley, music like that. Long Way Home just has this great weathered, heartful, real like soulful kind of voice that you've come to know from his music. And so to be 20 years plus doing it and still making some of your best work, I just was so excited. And I've been spinning this one a few times. So music of the week is Long Way Home from Ray LaMontagne. And my movie of the week is actually, I just watched it last night, interestingly enough. So I was struggling because last week, you guys might remember that our movie of the week, I had 2 of them because I wanted to talk about that Clint Eastwood Juror number 2. But this week I was struggling. I didn't have a ton of time and I was like worried that I wasn't going to have a movie choice. And lo and behold, the best thing happened. My fiance and I both had a night off and she clicked open the Criterion collection and said, "What do you want to watch, babe?" And I said, "Oh, let's go." So we went through and looked at 97 titles and eventually we came across one that surprisingly we both hadn't seen. I had heard the soundtrack a million times but never actually watched the movie, which is Singles from 1992. It's the Cameron Crowe movie that takes place in Seattle. And so the whole soundtrack is Mudhoney and Alice in Chains and all this great music. And the movie was just really cool too. I wasn't sure if I was going to be into it because it is kind of like follows a couple like single people and their journey into romance or whatever. So not typically my foray all the time, but I tell you, I was into this from start to finish. Great movie, outstanding writing, amazing soundtrack. Definitely will watch again. It was just so much fun. So that was Singles from Cameron Crowe in 1992. And obviously I can talk movie shit with you guys all day. So as I always say, if you want to talk more about movies, follow me on Letterboxd. It's just Cody Pope on Letterboxd. You can see all my movie reviews, movie ratings, watch lists, all this kind of stuff. So that's where you can go for all the movie stuff. Big shout out to Megan who just jumped in the chat. Hi, Megan. I see you coming in from YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't already, please like the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've been working on growing this Hellhound Publishing channel over the last couple years. We've got over 200 videos on the channel between all the podcast episodes, behind the scenes videos, documentaries, interviews, all sorts of stuff, radio performances. So make sure you subscribe to that. Oh, shout out to Star who just popped in the chat. Star, love you. So happy that you're here tonight, coming in from Facebook. Much love. So yeah, and my read of the week, I got a little off track there. My read of the week, I'm still reading Subliminal, but as you guys know, it really has had a huge, profound impact on me so far. So if you weren't here for us talking about it yet, the book I'm still reading is called Subliminal: How Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior. And I am just really, every time I pick this thing up, I am just really figuring out new ways to adjust my perspective and utilize the tools and resources to like better approach the things that I'm doing. Oh, speaking of fiancés, shout out to Nicolette coming in from Facebook. So I'm going to run through some events here real quick. As always, if you have any sort of event coming up that you want mentioned in the show, send me an email at codycentralshow@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to plug your event if it seems something that I would get behind. So stuff that's coming up on this month and next month. Tuesday, January 14th, the Women's Business Circle is going to be hosting their Mindshare session at 9 a.m. at the Lawrence Barn in Hollis, New Hampshire. And so basically this is a free public brainstorming. It's like a morning session where you can kind of share ideas and network with like-minded women who are interested in starting and growing their own businesses. They do events all the time, so big shout out to them. Almost all their events are free, so go out and support them. Wednesday, January 15th, the Bards on the Rocks Poetry Crew is hosting their Bards Writing Workshop. That's going to be at the Mocha Pot in Manchester, New Hampshire. That's Wednesday, January 15th. Also on Wednesday, January 15th, there's going to be Spins and Needles DJ night going down at Thirsty First in Lowell. Thirsty First is a great venue. Sounds like a really cool event. So if you're free that night, definitely check that out. It's going to be some punk DJs, probably some hip hop DJs, all sorts of stuff. Friday, January 17th, Women's Business Circle is hosting Coffee and Connections Morning Mixer. That's going to be at Coho in Milford, New Hampshire. Also on Friday, January 17th, Lucy and the Abductors are both going to be playing at FTW in Haverhill, Mass. as part of the Primrose Tattoo Walk-Up event. Primrose Tattoo event in Haverhill is going to have like over 40 tattoo artists from all over the world there this weekend. So that's going to be a great event. They're all about choppers and tattoos. So that's FTW in Haverhill, Mass. Sunday, January 19th, Fee the Evolutionist and Conflict are both going to be playing at Rap Night Manchester at the Shaskeen in Manchester, New Hampshire. You guys know I always talk about Rap Night, one of the most important hip hop residencies in New Hampshire, going on probably over 11 years now. So this is going to be an awesome lineup. You got Conflict and Nasty from Vermont, and you got Fee the Evolutionist, a Gate City hometown boy. So that's going to be a great one. Tuesday, January 21st, New Hampshire Underground is hosting its grand reopening party. That's going to be at 134 Haynes Street. I implore you to check out New Hampshire Underground after you're done watching the show tonight. They're a creative-based music co-working and venue space here in Nashua that's really dedicated to providing whether it's a rehearsal space or a venue or a workspace or a networking space, anything of that nature. So I'm really excited to see what they have going on this year. That's the New Hampshire Underground Grand Reopening Party. That is Tuesday, January 21st. More info on that on Facebook. Friday, January 24th, Volley and Street Trash are both going to be playing at Cody in Lowell, Mass. That's going to be an awesome show. Lots of punk and thrash going on. Saturday, January 25th. If you were watching the show last week, my good friends from Hybrid Theory Radio, on January 25th, they're hosting their beer collab release party at Epigram in Tingsboro, Massachusetts. So they got the Hybrid Theory beer coming out, and they're going to have music, the beer, food, all sorts of great stuff. That's at Epigram in Tingsboro, Mass. And then a couple more. Saturday, February 1st is the Queen City Black Market. That's a goth hardcore alternative vendor market that's going to be going on in Manchester, New Hampshire. Sunday, February 2nd, Mastakilla of Wu-Tang Clan is going to be performing at Wally's at Hampton Beach. Saturday, February 15th, emo legends, the Get Up Kids, are going to be doing the 25-year anniversary of Something to Write Home About at Aura in Portland, Maine. Wednesday, February 19th, Boston hardcore come-up band Haywire, who's making noise all over the world, is going to be playing at River Grange in Concord, New Hampshire. And lastly, on Saturday, February 22nd, Massachusetts metalcore hardcore legends In Remembrance are going to also be playing at the Shaskeen as well. So lots of great stuff coming up over the next 2 months. So don't tell me that you sat at home and didn't do anything when there's all sorts of great stuff to entertain you. And with that said, let's get into the show tonight. So I am incredibly grateful to be having this conversation tonight with a friend of mine. So we met working in the motorcycle industry together. And then as we were working, I found out that he's just this deep, multifaceted person who not only did he work in motorcycles, but he's a practicing visual artist as well. He does illustrations and painting. And lately he's been on a tremendous journey, and he's working and practicing as a certified transformational coach, speaker, and mentor. So please, everybody, drop some applause in the chat and welcome my friend, Jay DiPietro. Jay, how are you doing, brother?
What's going on? How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. I'm so stoked to have you here tonight, dude. We're gonna get deep, but I'm excited
to be here with you. You know what I mean? That's awesome. I miss you guys, man. I miss you guys a lot. Like
I know, me too. We had a good crew. We both worked at a Harley Davidson dealer together before the ship started losing all of its floorboards.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah. I figure. So we got Star up in the chat. Star, big applause from Star.
Star, what's up, kiddo?
You got Jen in the chat who says welcome. Jen is here all the time. So shout out to Jen. Shout out to Scott who's up in here tonight. Shout out to Megan, everybody that's here every week. And yeah, this is dope. So obviously, thank you so much for making time to chat with me tonight. I've been really looking forward to catching up at some point.
I've been looking forward to this one.
I'm glad, man.
Yeah.
Me too. There were so many things that came up while we were working that we only had like a few moments in passing to talk about, or like 5 minutes in the doorway of my office before we had to go run and do shit. So it's like
it's amazing that we did that way.
I know, and think about how much we like learned and discussed in those little like segments of time.
So those were great conversations.
Yeah, that's what made me, and to see all the stuff that you've done since then is just like, man, it just makes me really excited to like get into this and for you to kind of share with everybody all the work that you're doing, because, you know, a lot of people would look at Harley Davidson as the kind of job that would be like, you know, the top of the hill. And it was really like a stepping stone for us to find the things that were going to ultimately make us happy. But we like got to have this great chapter along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of people that felt that way about working at Harley, and if you know, if I'm being honest, I think when I first started years ago, that I think that I felt the same way. But it was, you learn quickly that that's really not. It's not that real romantic vision that you have when you start out, you know, and I think that's what draws people in.
Yeah. The romance is on the ride.
Right. Except the people that work at the dealership, they ride less than anybody.
I know. They have the least amount of riding time. I joke with people all the time, but I'm serious. Since I've been gone from Harley, I've easily put over 1,000+ miles on my bike.
Oh yeah. It's easy, man. Easy.
It's just like
you go to work. Like, I mean, I worked in service, so we did ride a little bit more, but really not that. I mean, we go around the block.
I know, right? You're lucky to go through like an industrial park or something.
Right. Like I'd rather go for a walk.
So I'm glad that we kicked this off this way though, because obviously like through us talking, I know that motorcycles have been a big part of your life way longer than working at Harley. And so that was kind of the first thing I felt like we should talk about is like, when did you get into motorcycle riding in general? And when did it end up like taking such a turn in your life? You know, when did you go from just like you loved riding to then you were like, I'm going to work in the industry?
So, I mean, we started riding mini bikes. We were like freaking 13 years old or 12 or 13. You know what I mean? And me and a few neighborhood kids and my cousin and one of my uncles who's only a few years older than me. And they all, you know, everyone had either mini bikes or dirt bikes. And that's how we all started riding, you know what I mean? And we were like little neighborhood menaces. And that's how it started, you know? It's like, and it progressed from then. It was just always part of my life. And I mean, I've said this a lot to a lot of people. Like, there's always been these two constant things in my life. One of them has been shit that has two wheels and art.
I know that feeling.
It's been all my life. And it was always, yeah, I've always dipped in and out of it. Like, how do I try to make a living with this? How do I make a living with this? And it's funny because if you know that, if you know anything about it, if you've ever tried to take that thing, that hobby or that talent or something that you've got and try to turn that into a, you know, monetize it or turn it into a way to make a living, it gets difficult. And a lot of times what happens is it tends to, I don't want to say water down your passion, but it tends to muddy that water a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And so I'll bounce back out of it, you know? So, I mean, eventually I ended up, I had my own business. I know you can see behind me that thing that says signs, right?
Yeah.
A little corner of it, right? I had my own graphic design business. So I did signs. And one of my customers was Carl, the Viking.
Miss you too, Carl.
Miss you too, Carl, man. Big
Another
time,
one from
bro.
the tribe, one of the best.
Oh, you're definitely one of the best. So one of my customers was Ron Boyd at Boyd Cycles. And I ended up struggling in the business. And I ended up going to work for him because I used to wrench my own bike, right? So I ended up going to work for him for a while and got an opportunity to go work for Boston Harley Davidson. And so I went. And then I did about 5 years there. Left there kind of unceremoniously. And then I went and I had an opportunity to do well, I'm going through the whole gamut here. Like, I had an opportunity to do a contract position for a year out at Hanscom Air Force Base on the private side as an operations manager. So I did that, which was pretty cool. I mean, it was it was a good experience. Not necessarily the thing I wanted to do. And left that, and then COVID happened, and High Octane, Big Bob, and Dave Nutter were trying to get me to go to work there. They had been trying for a long time, and I was resistant. I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then finally I broke down and went, all right, I'll do it. And so that's how I ended up there.
Man, it's crazy where
we
life takes us.
All of us know how that ended up. You know, we all got laid off.
Yeah, seriously. I would say friggin' 75% of us in the interview in the chat all got laid off.
100%, like, absolutely. It was crazy, right?
But it's funny because I still get texts from people there every week. I still get calls every week.
Do you really?
Oh yeah.
See, I don't. They stopped calling me. It's funny.
Oh my gosh. If I had $1 for every text I had telling me I should come back, and I'm like, I wish it was in my control.
You know what though, man? It's you're on a different path, bro.
Absolutely.
You're on a different path. That's all I can say. And the path that I'm on right now, it started while I was there, right? This whole thing started while we were working there. And I definitely wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for me being there. So
yeah, no, I'm totally with you. It's the funniest thing to say, but so obviously I've been doing music for most of my life.
right.
But one thing was that I never did my own videos. I never wanted to do any sort of YouTube shit or social media stuff. I was always apprehensive of that. And one of the big things that happened working at Harley was that my job became marketing as well as the events. So I had to learn how to edit video.
Right.
And so that job basically like held a gun to my head to make me learn how to make videos. And I ended up doing pretty well at it and getting some great marketing content.
I've seen that stuff. You make some great videos. I'm like,
thank you. And that's the thing. Now I've done so all this, like now I do stuff for my record label instead of outsourcing it. And I've done documentaries for other artists now. It's funny how like that job kind of forced me to pivot and figure out that I could do so much more for myself than just like be a musician.
You totally can. You know what I mean? You absolutely can. And you definitely have the talent, bro.
Thank you, man.
You've got the talent, the skill set. You definitely have the drive. I mean, look, you're doing this too. This isn't easy either, right?
No,
I've got some friends that do this, you know, I mean, and it takes effort.
It really does. Adam in the chat said, editing is the hardest part, but once you get your system down, it becomes much easier. Keeping the quality high. Ain't that the truth, Adam? It's so true. You really have to figure out what your template or your system of processes is going to be.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's made it for me is like once I figured out my editing program, it's like now I feel so much more confident than I did 6 months to a year ago.
It all comes down to systems, right? And it's your personal systems, right? Whatever systems that you have, you stick with those systems that work. It's not like reaching for a goal, right? Because you move towards a goal, you hit the goal. What happens? Then you kick back, or you look for something else. And that, you know, having a goal is about winning the game. Having a system is about consistently winning the game. It's winning the season, right? It's winning for the season. So that's the systems make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say that because you had mentioned the thing about like wrenching on your own bike and being on the service side of that. And so one of the questions I had written down was that obviously the two sides of the motorcycle industry that we worked on, we had vastly different experiences in terms of like being people facing, being customer facing, all of that. And so being on the service side of things, from my perspective, I kind of imagined that there was more emphasis on like the integrity of the work being done, the precision, the awareness, the skillmanship. Were any of those things kind of like influential to you when you decided to initially like make a career and get your time in the industry, or did you have a different kind of feeling that led you there?
Oh, those things were all important. And I mean, when I started forward facing, right? So I was customer facing.
Okay.
Right. So when I first started at Boston Harley, I was what they called the delivery coordinator. So everybody that bought a new bike, every single customer, the last person that they saw before they rode off on their new bike was me. I brought their bike to them either at, on the property at the dealership or at their home. And I went over that bike with them from front to back. So they knew how everything worked. If they had any questions, I answered their questions, and I was the last person. So that was forward facing. And I went from that to service writing. And then that's obviously, customer forward facing. And anybody who, service writers, I want to say this, not because I did it, but they probably have the hardest job in the dealership because nothing they can do is right.
Yeah. You're seldom dealing with happy people.
Dude, yeah. Look at out in sales, they deal with people. They're happy. It's a wonderful day. They just bought a new motorcycle. They're ringing bells. They're cheering. They're clapping. You know what I mean? They're throwing freaking confetti and got balloons. And then a week later, they're down in service, and you're looking at them, telling them, "Yeah, that's not covered by warranty, and it's going to be $1,200." Right? So now, you know what I mean? You are not a good person. Right?
Yeah, you are public enemy number one now.
Yeah. So and it's like the most stressful position, and then you're also held hostage by things like parts availability, right? If you don't have available parts, or even time scheduling, like time management, right, to get people in, that's another uphill battle, right? So you're constantly being faced with all these things that you just have to fight with and try to manage. It's not easy.
No, people don't understand either. It's like you got 8 or 10 hours in a day. It's
right.
Like you can only do so much work.
Then you can throw this into the mix. You typically have a management, and I'm not bashing people in management that manage in that industry, but you typically have those people that are trying to process in and out quickly, quick. The quicker we do it, the more money we make. The quicker
numbers on the board.
And then what happens? That's how mistakes get made. That's how you end up with a bunch of comebacks, especially from the service side, right? And it always seems to bite you in the butt. I've seen it way too many times, and it's a tough balancing act. It's rewarding. It can be very rewarding. You know what I mean? We've helped out tons of people, like people traveling on the road, and they break down, and they're freaking 1,500 miles from home, and you help get them back on the road. That's pretty rewarding to help somebody out that way, and you kind of hope that if it was you, I know I always put myself in that position. Like if that was me, I'd be grateful as hell that somebody was helping me out, because otherwise you screw. What do you
exactly
do?
Like what kind of service would I want if I was broke down
Right.
or stranded or whatever?
Right. I know a lot of people that work in the industry, and they start in the industry and they stay 20 years in the industry and they just keep going, right? There's guys we worked with that have been there forever. I had a solid 5 years, and then I had a break for a few years where I had to be a customer. And then I came back to it. That being a customer experience helped shape the way that I thought about it and worked within it, right? Because I knew what it felt like to be like, hey, we can't get you in for 2 weeks, or there's no available parts, or
this thing's back ordered or whatever,
delays and crazy things. And it's like, okay, I guess I'm not going on that trip. Or you know what I mean? So you know how that feels, and it kind of changes the way you approach people and putting them, guiding that work through the shop. So yeah,
I could see that. I could see how that would have a huge impact on your way of dealing with people too. because you have to adjust your perspective now and kind of put yourself in their shoes, as where in the sales side of things, it's more like, well, if this is what you want, this is how you get it.
Right.
So
it's funny you talk about perspective. It's a thing I say all the time is you change your perspective and you change your life. And it's true. It's true. And everyone can change their perspective. People say, and then I go, you stop and think about this for a minute, because if you change your perspective and you start to look at things from a different point of view, you will change your life. And usually it's for the better.
Yeah, you aren't kidding, man. Absolutely. So one of the cool things that I picked up from our like conversations too was that not only were you heavy into like the motorcycle side of shit, obviously, but you also do the visual art. And so as like a musician and a artist as well, I took a huge interest in that. And as I started seeing your work, I found out that we had like mutual friends who were fans of your work as well. And so it was just like this cool kind of symbiosis that came together. And good chat here. Shout out to Jess popping in from Facebook.
Hey, Jess.
So I was really excited when I learned that you were a visual artist. And so I wanted to know, when did you kind of like find yourself to be an artist, and how did that affect you growing from there once you did?
Oh man, you got to be kidding me. I have drawings that go back to, grade school, right? So I was that kid in grade school that was scribbling on the desk or in the margins on the book, or in the note. My notebook was filled with just drawings, like just crazy stuff, like, fire and skeletons and grim reapers and, army dudes and all sorts of stuff. And that was constant my whole life. I went to art school. Well, let me back up, right? I would never have graduated high school if it wasn't for my art teacher, because I was horrible in English and I was horrible in history. And my history and my English teacher kind of made a deal with my art teacher that when I had history or English, if I went to art class and completed whatever the day's lesson plan was in art, that they would put me through, pass me. And I did that, and that's how I ended up graduating high school, man. I wouldn't have graduated.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? And then later on, I went to I was out of school for a couple of years, out of high school for a couple of years working, and decided I wanted to go back to school. And I went back to art school. I went to Montserrat and Beverly for a couple of years. So now we're going to get into an interesting story, right? Because I can't tell this story without leading into the rest of this. So I met a girl while I was in art school in Montserrat. We met there, and we decided that we were going to date. And then we decided that we were going to get married, and we were way too fucking young. Excuse my language.
No, you're good.
And we did that. And that lasted for a couple of years. It was good when it was good, but it wasn't always good. And then it ended. Fast forward, hey, we're still friends, right? That's a long time ago. That was late 80s. And after I got out of that, I didn't know what I was going to do. And we lived in Lynn, over near Lynn Hospital, which was the old Lynn Hospital. And now it's a Stop and Shop now. They like tore the hospital down and made a Stop and Shop. That was a long time ago, and I had a friend that worked there, and he worked in security at night, and it was a psych unit at the time.
Oh shit.
And he's like, dude, we need somebody to work nights. You want to work nights? He goes, easy job. You just hang out. Ambulance will come. They'll bring somebody in, and they'll bring them up to the floor, and you just got to let them in. And so it was kind of an easy job. So I took that, and there was like 3 or 4 of us on every night. And so we just take turns, like either sleeping or watching the desk, or I read a lot of books while I was there, but I got really interested in the medical field. And so I decided, you know what? I'm working nights. I'm going to go take a class during the day and become an EMT. So I did that.
Oh, shit.
Did that. While I was doing that, the hospital, there was 2 hospitals. There was Lynn and Union, and it was Atlantic Care Hospital. Union Hospital was a regular emergency room, cardiac unit, intensive care unit, and everything. They moved me up there to work in the emergency room as a security guy in the emergency room because they had all kinds of shit that happened in there.
Oh boy.
So I had this overnight shift that was really a weird hours. I worked 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.
That is weird.
It was the weirdest shift ever. But the experience that I got there was incredible because you worked with the doctors, you worked with the nurses, and if you weren't like dealing with some bullshit, they would like, hey, come on and see what we're doing here, or you could observe stuff that they were doing and learn. So that was really it was a great experience. Went from that to working on an ambulance, and I worked for a Lifeline ambulance, a North Shore ambulance.
Damn.
And Salem Hospital, which was was the North Shore Medical Center at the time. They were looking for EMTs, paramedics to work in the emergency room as part of their trauma team. So I applied for the job. I got that job, and I went to work there. And then that leads us into a whole different story, and I don't know if you want to get into that, but we can get into it for sure. It's out there. I've talked about it plenty of times. We can talk about it here if you'd like.
Let it rip. We're here for a good time, not a long time, right?
That's a fact. So I worked there for, I don't know, a bunch of years. But being a level 1 trauma center, you see a lot of stuff, a lot of auto accidents, industrial accidents, illnesses, sick, and just a lot of gunshot victims, muggings, rapes. I mean, you name it, you see it all, right? June of 1997, we had a gunshot victim come in midday, probably about 2:00, and I was on the trauma team. The kid was brought in. He was a 30-year-old guy. He was brought in and started working on him and worked on him for a while. Turns out that it was my younger brother. Right?
Holy shit.
So he didn't make it. And so that was, I could get into the details of the story. I mean, I was doing chest compressions and because he came in, they were doing chest compressions. He got shot in the middle of the chest. He was intubated, pushing fluids, doing all the things you do. And how familiar are you with any of that? You familiar with any of that at all?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you do in a situation like that medically is if you have a young person, They're usually very viable, especially if they're healthy. There's something called emergency thoracotomy, which is open heart massage, which you'll do it's kind of a last ditch effort. And so they were about to perform that procedure, and I realized who it was that we were working on. And the words came out of my mouth, right? This, my brother, blah, blah, blah. The whole freaking room stopped and looked at me and like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, it's my little brother. And like in that microsecond, like my whole world, like just changed, right? Everything just changed. And that was 1997. I worked at the hospital for another year until July of 98. Oh, man. Ended up involved in a few more traumas very similar to that, with a couple of gunshot victims, some car accident victims, where we did the same procedures. Ended up diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder in July of 98, and spent the next 25 years basically in this state of post-traumatic stress. And even when I started at High Octane, I was in pretty rough shape then. And it was during those 3 years working there that I hit that rock bottom. After about 25 years, I finally hit that rock bottom. And well, here I am, right?
Right. You probably had so many things going on in life to almost distract you from it. The first thought I had was that, like, I can't believe you had the strength to go back and do that job for another year after that, having gone through that. Like, my chest was like tightening up, just like listening to the story. I like to have lived through that and had the strength to go back and try and help other people.
You know what it was, man? Then it was I was so angry that I didn't really grieve or go through that period of sadness, right? Shocked, yes. Yeah, did I cry? Yeah, absolutely. My freaking younger brother's like gone, right?
Yeah.
But I was so angry that anger was like fuel. Like it was like fuel for that train to keep going, to keep pushing. And I did that for a long time. And it's interesting that so now the thing that I do now is I help people that have post-traumatic stress, right? So I work with people that have that. And now that I have a greater understanding of how that works and how that thing affects you, I understand completely what happened with me. And I know that's a lot of it was avoidable, but it was also like in 1997, 98, like they weren't looking at post-traumatic stress the way they do now, right? Like now there's so many resources and because they've recognized it so much with all these veterans. We've been at war for 20 years, more than 20 years, right? And you've got all these guys coming back, men and women coming back with all this stuff. And so a lot of things have been developed, and they've done a lot more research and recognized it a lot more. So it's a lot. I'm not going to say that it's easy, because it's never going to be easy, right, for anyone. Yeah. But the resources are there, and the treatment modalities are there to help people. And they weren't really that available when I was going through it, right? So
I can imagine, because even the idea of therapy in and of itself was very taboo in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Dude,
there wasn't a huge precedent of like
if
grown men getting therapy to deal with the shit they need to deal with. That almost seemed like a
huge,
comedic trope at that time.
right, huge stigma attached to it, right? Huge stigma attached.
Yes,
to that.
that's what I
Like,
was trying to say. Thank you.
people, I mean, they would just look at you like, you know, and so you didn't want to do it. Like you didn't want to go do that, right? And especially if you worked in healthcare, because you saw people go in and talk to therapists or psychologists, and I'm not knocking them at all. They've got a hard job. They do. It's a hard job. And you've got to be smart about it. But you see people go in there and they'd end up hospitalize them, or they start writing a script. So I went initially and I was like, okay, first of all, when I went to, you're not remotely even trying to help me, but you sent me to somebody who immediately within the first 3 minutes of talking to me whips out the prescription pad and he's writing a script. Like, you don't even know if I really like this is even really going to help me. And that was my initial experience. And that was like, I walked away from it. And it literally really wasn't until 25 years later, almost about 24 years later, actually, that I went back, because I was, the thing is, like, it's tough to describe to people, but, you know, when we talk about, you know, they talk about how 22 veterans a day take their life, right? They take their own life. And from my own experience and from talking to other people that have struggled with that, and everyone agrees that at some point you come to this point in time where you say, I'll do anything to make this freaking freight train in my head stop, even if it means throwing a rope over the fucking rafters and hanging myself to make it stop, right? So and so you get to that point, so you can see how that happens. And the idea here is like, you can't let people get to that point, because once you get there, it's really tough to prevent that, to slow that down, because once you start down that road, it's tough. And I know, because I was there, you know what I mean? And I was right there. And it was, call it divine intervention or act of God or the universe or angels, or whatever you want to believe in. I didn't do that, but
yeah, I know that feeling though.
Changed the course of my life, and it changed the way I wanted to do things. And it was through that whole experience and the experience of being in therapy, with the talk therapy wasn't really helping much. You know what I mean? It gave you an outlet to vent, but usually for me anyway, my experience was that the more I talked about it, the worse I felt. Like I would go in there feeling okay, and I would leave feeling just fucking horrible, and going, what the fuck, man? Why am I doing this to myself? But I discovered EMDR. And I said, I'm going to try it. And I tried it. And for the first time in 25 years, and that was after about, I want to say it was probably 5 or 6 sessions, I actually had, I want to call it relief from the you know, you want to call it symptoms or whatever, but relief from that, the torment of it. And I was like, holy
like
shit.
The weight of the burden.
Yeah. And so then I went back and did a bunch more, and it was like, shit, man, this is really helping me. And it did. And so I found a place that I could get certified to do it. I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. And then I did that. And I did that while I was at High Octane. You know what I mean?
I remember that. That's what made me so interested in it. It was like
going to school for it. You know what I mean? And it was an amazing course. And I had an amazing, there's a book and I don't know if any of the people that are watching it, you might even be familiar with it. It's by a doctor named Bessel van der Kolk, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
I have heard of that. Yes, I've never read it, but I'm very familiar.
It's all about post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic stress disorder, and how it's not just a malady of the mind, if you will, and how the body actually does keep the score and store these traumatic experiences as everything's energy, right?
Yeah.
Everything, the entire world is made of, everything has energy. Including your traumatic experiences, and if those experiences aren't processed correctly at the time, they get stored, and it's really bizarre. And it's some of the strangest stuff you'll ever experience once you start working through it. But once you start working through it, you start to realize that, holy crap, that's really true. And you get through it and you go, wow, I feel like a different human being. And that's what's happened to me. And so he was one of the instructors in the course that I took, Bessel van der Kolk, and another Dr. Ariel Schwartz, another guy, Craig Penna. They're all like some of the top people in the field, and there were a few different programs I could have chose from. That's why I chose that one. I'm like, I'm going to take the class with these people that are like the top people. I want to learn from them. Whatever they have that I can learn, that's what I want. And so I did that. It was an amazing experience, you know. And I think I'm better for it, you know. And it was interesting because you would going through the class and learning how to do that, you would work with one another. So you would literally doing EMDR with each other in these practice sessions. But these practice sessions are like they're real. It's the real thing. It's a real session. So you're going through these sessions still even more, which was awesome. It was awesome. It was a great experience. It was a really great experience. I'm glad I did it.
I know it sounds so fascinating.
Changed my freaking life, bro.
Can imagine. I'm like, I've been at like a loss for words almost, because so much of what you said has resonated with me in so many ways. Like not to like parallel your story, but I had like a very similar traumatic incident where like a loved one passed away in my arms, and I was pretty young, and so it had like a adverse effect on me, and I definitely went on a downward spiral after the fact. And it's taken me a long time to realize that I never really processed that stuff accordingly. And so it's probably had an adverse effect on how I like manage my relationships with people. And so one of the things that I've been working on, especially because you said the thing about veterans, and my brother is a veteran as well, who he's 52 now. So he was serving probably in the like mid 90s, and
Gulf War time.
Yeah,
right
exactly. And he was in the Coast Guard. And so he's been just kind of later in life starting to get an understanding of how PTSD has had an effect on him and how it affects his judgment and stuff like that. And so having my trauma that I've dealt with and having my brother and trying to like be there for him as well has really taught me so much, just in regards to like, there are so many resources and tools out there that you can use to shape how you approach and overcome these like anchors that we carry around with us.
It's like I was talking with somebody, and we were talking about this, and it was we half jokingly talked about, it was around Christmas, and we talked about Jacob Marley, how the ghost of Jacob Marley is carrying these chains that you forge in life. And it's almost like this similar thing is like you're carrying this weight and you're dragging these chains around with you through life.
Yeah.
And it's just this, it's a burden, but it's avoidable. It's manageable, right? So you can learn how to manage those things and find relief from it. And there are a bunch of different ways, and so, it's somatic EMDR, so that you'll see it called EMDR and you'll see it called somatic EMDR. And EMDR, and if we didn't talk about what it is, but it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's a dual attention processing. So the original thing was eye movement. So you move your fingers back and forth. And, the therapist would do this, and you'd follow with your eyes while you're focusing on that disturbing memory. And it would help to lessen the impact of that memory.
Okay.
And so ultimately what happened is that it further progressed, right, over time. So it was like 1987 when it began, when it was discovered by a woman named Francine Shapiro. She discovered it. She was a doctor, and she discovered it kind of accidentally, and then worked with it and developed it to what it became. But it's gone so much further. So somatic processing is, somatic being the physiology, right? That's the physical side of it, with your nervous system and how it affects, your body. And the EMDR is the psychological side of it. And so you have this combination of the two therapy modalities mixed together. If you,
Okay.
for lack of a better term, loss of words here, and you use that to reprocess disturbing memories and thoughts and anxieties or depression. And it's really kind of freaking. One of the things that Bessel van der Kolk said is that it's so simple that it's amazing we weren't doing it 1,000 years ago. And one of the things, I wrote a thing about it, and here's where I'm going to tie it back to motorcycles, right? So that there's always this saying, and you've probably heard it, oh, you never see a motorcycle outside a therapist's office, right? So when I was going through this class, I was thinking of this, and when we started talking about the eye movement, when you're riding your bike, what are you doing? Boom, 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 nonstop, right? The eyes are moving constantly, right? So You're constantly shifting focus. You don't realize that, and you're thinking, because you do a lot of thought. There's a lot of thought going on while you're riding, right? You get a lot of time to do that, but the eyes are constantly going back and forth, back and forth. You're really self-processing these thoughts and these feelings. And I was like, that's amazing, because there's so much truth in that comment. You don't see that a motorcycle outside a therapist's office. That's not really true, because you do, but
yeah.
I tied it back.
Makes sense. It's like the wind therapy, it's like people call it wind therapy, and it's like, it makes sense, because you're distracted by using all of these different muscle functions.
You have these different muscle functions and these different senses that you're using. You're using these different senses, but at the same time, you're also having these. You also, probably a lot of times I know I'm deep in thought, right? I'm thinking about all sorts of things, but I'm
Yeah.
also doing this constantly, right? So I have that dual attention thing going on, which is all part of this processing. You know, and now
So-
somebody out there in the world is going to see this and they're going to go, I'm going to figure this out. Somebody's much smarter than me, which is fine. I hope they do.
But it almost makes me wonder, because you even said something about it, this whole thing, the EMDR processing kind of starting in like the late 80s. One of the things that I noticed in like just researching, so I had like a little understanding of what we were going to be talking about, I noticed that there seems to be a lot of it. I don't want to say adversity to it, but there's a lot of like nonchalance to it, it seems. But it seems like from everything you're telling me that like you need a very like specific set of skills to really process this stuff accordingly. So why does there seem like there's so much pushback to it?
Oh, because they cannot definitively say why it works.
I see.
Right? So scientists, being scientists, right, and people that look at things from a scientific approach, always like to know why something works. What is it that makes that work? And they cannot definitively say this works because X, Y, Z. Right? I can't tell you why it works. I can only tell you that it's very effective.
Yeah.
Does it work for everybody? No. Does it work for a lot of people? Absolutely. Did it work for me? Unbelievably. Because if I'm being honest, I went from sitting on the side of a riverbed with a pistol in my hand, going to dump a round through my head, to being to having a complete life change in every way, in almost every way. You know, I went from being depressed and overweight and living in a state of fight, flight, and freeze, to losing a ton of weight, feeling good about myself, moving forward, want to help other people, you know what I mean? Just a whole different outlook on life. And I don't credit all of it to that. I mean, there was a lot of other work that went into this, but that was a big piece of it.
No, it's
right?
like anything. You know, you build a house, you don't credit the hammer, but you needed it to get there. So it's like you did that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't believe I could have done it without that, because I was in talk therapy. Talk therapy wasn't going to do it. I had been through course of medication that wasn't going to do it, because that was just ridiculous to me. You know what I mean? I had been through all these things. And once I had done this, like I said, it was a life-changing moment. It really was. And, you know, and I talked to all these other people that had the same experience. And so I was like, I want to know how to do this. And can I do this? Like, am I able to, as somebody who's not a therapist or a psychologist or whatever? And lo and behold, yes, you can. And so, you know, I did that. I went and took a course to become a trauma-informed coach, which I did that, and went and got my personal training certificate. So, because of, you know, the physical aspect of it, physical fitness is a big thing. Nutrition is a big thing. Yeah. All these things combined, all promote good mental health. You know?
Absolutely, dude. I'm totally with you on that.
So, yeah, that's where I was at, man. That's where I was at, and that's where there's a lot of things that got me there, but it was, I don't know. I guess I'm not a real big, everything happens for a reason type of person, right? I'm not real big on that because I think everything happens because a lot of times we're stupid and we do dumb shit. But I mean, it all just kind of seems to line up, and it puts me in this place where now I can help people, and I don't just like I went and talked to about 50 people. A friend of mine worked at the Stratham, New Hampshire Fire Department, and they have a nonprofit organization, Lights for Life. Shameless plug right now, right? So I'm going to give them a
plug it, please.
Lights for Life, and they bring attention to post-traumatic stress and the difficulties for first responders and firefighters, EMTs, and police. And so I talked to a group of them. He asked me if I would. They had this event, and it was me, and there were two other speakers. And one of the other speakers she's a clinical psychologist that works on the FBI's hostage rescue team.
Oh, shit.
Right. And I'm going, I'm just this freaking dopey dude that worked at Holly in the service department. She's a psychologist that works for the fucking FBI and the hostage rescue team. And I'm like going, why am I here? But my point is that I have the real lived experience, the same as a lot of these guys. And I ended up in this situation and with this lifelong thing that I dealt with. And now I can speak about it and say, look it, because I think when I think back, it's, all the warning signs were there, all the symptoms were there, and if there was anybody there that was looking that could recognize that would have said, hey, let's talk. Let's figure this out. I may not have had to go through that for that length of time. So that was my point. My point is that if you think something's going on, if you recognize something in somebody else that you're working with, one of your partners or one of the guys in the firehouse or whatever, freaking talk to them. Talk to them. Find out what's going on, because the sooner you can address it, the easier it will be to work through it.
Dude, that's the same thing I say to people in my life is don't let these things manifest to a point that they become untenable. Right. Use me or use the person closest to you as a sounding board, as a resource, whatever it is you need. Just
right. So
get that shit out of your system before it builds up into something that you can no longer manage.
Right. And for me, it got to a place where I couldn't manage it anymore. Right. And my solution to the management was to freaking just punch the ticket and check out, because I couldn't deal with it anymore. I didn't want to deal with it. And I was very, very fortunate to have a really good friend, a lifelong friend that kind of, in a way, he intervened with, and it was a text message. And he didn't know what he was doing at the time. He didn't know that that's what he was, but that it was he sent me a message, and that message was that thing that, like, wait a minute, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So,
man, I'm so glad you're still here.
I'm glad.
Have so much to offer to this world.
I'm glad I'm here too. And so, as I've talked to this, I was on another podcast. Actually, one of the things I did was I took this speaking class. And if you were interested in it, I'll hook you up on Wednesday nights. It's a free workshop.
Oh, cool.
My friend Anthony does it. It's an hour. It's free, right? He gets in there, he teaches some techniques, and he does. And I still go even after I went and took his paid class, right? But through taking his paid class, I ended up getting in touch with some people that do a podcast called The Shifting Focus, and they reached out and wanted to talk to me. So I did that podcast with them. And now and I've done a couple of other things with speaking from him, with some other people we do. And it's mostly all been virtual. I've done a couple of live things, but it's mostly all been virtual stuff. And one of the last ones we just did, there's a woman that was also one of the speakers, but she's a freaking talk show host.
Holy crap.
And she wanted to talk to me.
That's
so he's
awesome.
trying to arrange that. And I'm like, I'm all about it, dude. I'm all about it. Let's go. If that's what it is, let's go. You know what I mean? Like I never really told the story in detail about the day my brother died and all that. And I didn't really give a lot of detail on this. But the details are out there. And I never really did that for all that time, for like 25 years. And then finally, once I started talking about it, I started doing that. And that alone has been incredibly good for me, you know what I mean? To put that out there, to say, hey, look at, this is what happened, right? And it touches a lot of people in a lot of ways, and people start to take a look at their own life and the things that have happened in their own lives. And hopefully, because I've done that, like somebody gave me a really great compliment, and that you told your story and you opened yourself up and you were so vulnerable. And that was like, and I had somebody else say to me, like, that vulnerability is a weakness. And I said, no, it's not. I said, vulnerability is like a freaking superpower, because it takes so much strength to open yourself up to that, that you, once you do it, I say that you become unbreakable. And there you go. There's the Unbreakable coach, right?
Yep. Dude, I'm totally with you. Our whole thing is like,
everybody can break, right? Anybody can break. You can't be completely unbreakable, but there's things in life where you're not gonna talk to me about this subject matter, and I'm not gonna break down over that. I'm not gonna allow. I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna allow, but I'm not gonna stand by and watch while other people break down over these things without reaching my hand out to help them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to step up and help you if you need that help. 100%. Because I don't want to see anybody else end up in a bad spot. Because a lot of people, if you ended up where I was, most people don't come out of that. So here I am, bro.
Exactly. Still here today. And that's the thing. It's like, the fact that you have something to say and the fact that you have these tools that you can share with people now is like, that is your like gift to humanity, without sounding so egregious. You know what I mean? But that is like, that's the thing that you can service the people you love around you by like sharing these tools with them. And it's a funny
circle. You know what I mean? Life is like cyclical, right? Because originally my career path was healthcare, right? That was where I wanted to go. And when I was working in the emergency room, I wanted to go to nursing school. That was where I wanted to be. And then it just kind of got nuked with this whole thing. And for the longest time, I thought I never want to go back to that. I never, ever want to go back and be in that situation. And now I find myself here, and I'm coming at it from, okay, ready? A different perspective. So I've changed that perspective. So I can still help you. It's just from a different angle. It's from a different point of view. So I'm coming at it from this different place. And that seems like that's where I should be.
Definitely.
So, yeah, man.
One thing you kind of mentioned that I wanted to ask you about too, because you'd obviously said that the fitness and exercise part of your life was like a big role in this transformation as well. You can obviously see from pictures you post and throwbacks and stuff that you've made tremendous strides in your journey to health.
I have.
And so, and even just like looking through your Unbreakable Coach page, which, by the way, if you guys are paying attention, all these links are scrolling at the bottom. So make sure you guys are checking out unbreakablecoach.com. Make sure you're following Jay on his Instagram platforms and all that. But so going through the Unbreakable Coach page, you can see that the power of exercise and health has really affected your overall mentality as well. And so I wanted to know, like, was that a coincidence that you kind of went through that journey at the same time that you were learning some of these like holistic healing skills? Or did you just have to navigate both of these things at life because they both kind of hit a peak at some point?
That's a really good question, because I don't know that I ever really thought about it that way. Like, I knew right away. Like I was 265 pounds, man, right? And I was not comfortable. But I was 265 pounds because, well, first of all, fight or flight will cause a cortisol dump, right? So cortisol will bloat you and make you fat. You'll get fat off with that. Like there's more to it than that, but it's just one of the things that happens, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. There's the self-medication, right? So we'd drink every night. Wouldn't drink during the day. Like, was I alcoholic? I don't know, but I definitely drank every night.
Yep.
Whether it was 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I did. That'll make you fat. So once I got to the place where we're, after working with EMDR, I found that relief. I had this whole different perspective on everything. And so I said, the whole, it's the whole connection, body, mind, right? The mind body thing. And somatic EMDR in a way says, body and mind, right?
Yeah.
And I just felt like I need for this vessel to be healthy so that what's up here can be healthy. And I just started doing small things, right? So, and I still basically do the same thing and I've been doing that now for 2.5 years about, and I get up every morning, 3:30 in the morning.
Whew.
And the first thing I do is freaking push-ups. All right. So I'll do calisthenic workouts. I'll do push-ups. I'll do sit-ups. I do a bunch of other things. And just doing that. And then I would walk, and I changed my diet. I decided to change my diet. I decided to have more fruit. I decided to have more vegetables. I decided to focus on the calorie-dense foods, single ingredients, not a lot of processed shit. Try to stay away from the pizza and the burgers and all the stuff we love to eat, right?
All right.
And
it's that calories in, calories out.
Yeah. And you know what? The weight started dropping off. I started feeling a lot better, and the weight just dropped off. And I went from 265. I went all the way down to 198. So in July of this year, I was at 198.
Damn.
And it was hard to stay at 198. You know what I mean? I was like, because that once I got to like 205, I was like, all right, I'm getting to 200 no matter what. I'm going to hit 200 no matter what. And then I was like, can I get below 200? And I didn't think I could. And I stepped on a scale one day, and I was like, 198. And I was like, oh, snap.
Hell yeah.
But just it was too hard to stay there. So right now I'm like 207, 208, right?
That makes sense, though.
It's winter time. It's a little bit, you know what I mean? I kind of laid back a little bit. I kind of backed off a little on the dieting as far as I'll eat more pizza. Like I had some great pizza the other day, which was awesome. But I won't make a habit of it. Like we would do that every day. Like when we worked at the dealership, dude, we would.
Oh my God. I never ate as much as I did working at that place in my life.
I don't think anybody does. It was like
I'd end up going home with food for days. So yeah, Jen commented and said,
"Who's Jen?"
So she's been watching the show from the top. She is one of our weekly viewers. So she said, Jen said, I'm trying to lose some weight to do the things I want to do, but it's hard with the medical issue going on. I'm semi-diagnosed with a semi-partial brain tumor. Doctors monthly are doing x-rays. So yeah, I think if you can't get out and exercise as much because of some like inability to do strenuous stuff like that, calories in, calories out, watching what you eat is going to be the biggest step on anybody's goal to weight loss.
There's absolutely. So it's gonna come down to look at you can. So I work with a few people at a fitness and health studio up in Gloucester, Stellar Fitness, and the approach and the mindset there is that it's the whole person, right? So you're looking at the whole person, and not everybody has to, get in the gym and be on the weight bench and do the weights and do the, run on a treadmill, right? There are other approaches as well, right? So one of those is dietary. Find it if your doctor can set you up with a nutritionist, you know what I mean? Because there are a lot of great nutritionists and holistic health people out there that can guide you. There are a lot of great diets out there. It's kind of on a side note for me is that one of the things with me is that I was taking Prilosec 40 milligrams a day for over 20 years.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Every day. In the last 2 years, I've probably taken it 6 times.
Damn. That's amazing.
And that was usually came on the heels of I ate something shitty like pizza or some fast food or something.
Yeah.
And so I would have a problem with that. So diet's huge, and it absolutely makes a big difference in everything. And so one of the other things I say to people is that you don't want to try. Anytime you try something new, most people the mindset is that I'm going balls to the wall, right? I'm going to go balls to the wall. It's all out, right? Okay, ready? Oh, this is January 13th. By tomorrow, I'll bet you 75% of the people that made a freaking New Year's resolution to go to the gym and lose weight have already stopped.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever action they took, they've already stopped because they try to bite off more than they can chew. They try to take too big of a step. Small, consistent steps every day compound over time and turn into big results. That's what worked for me. I wasn't taking big, giant steps. I never went to the gym until after we got laid off. I got laid off in June, and and because I had the time on my hands, I went to the gym. So I would go to the gym now, right? So I would still do my workout in the morning, but then I would supplement it and go to the gym and do something else. I would do some other, toss some weights around, whatever, but not on a real hardcore routine. And I've continued to do that. And now I'm working again, and I'm not in the gym, but still doing the workout at home every morning and still trying to stick with that diet. And it comes down to things like how much water are you drinking every day, right? How much protein do you take in? You should be taking in probably a gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Yep, that's what I've always heard too. That was a big part of my weight loss journey.
Yeah, it's kind of the formula, right? And if you can do that, you'll drop the weight. You'll drop weight and you'll drop the pounds and you'll start to feel a lot better and you'll start to notice those changes. And they'll come around a lot quicker than you think. But it's consistency, small, consistent steps. You don't have to try and run marathons every day or next week. Life isn't a sprint. Life is a marathon. Life itself is a marathon.
Yeah, you aren't kidding, man.
And you can't do it but one step at a time.
It's funny you mentioned something that just made me think for a sec, because you said something about not taking giant steps, and I couldn't agree with you more. And that was part of the shameless plug. Our new album is called Giant Steps in Gate City, and it's exactly that, because the story that we tell is that you can't just jump and hurdle over all of the challenges. In order to make giant steps, you have to take these small little steps to overcome all the shit in the way. And so you just nailed it on the head, is like, don't set yourself up for failure by trying to make it to the Olympics. Just do your hometown thing to make yourself happy first.
Right. That's what you've got to do. You need to take those small steps. You need to do the things that it's a lot of times it's going to be uncomfortable, right? And it's like anytime you start something new or start something different, or do something that we get used to a certain routine, or we go home, we sit down, we watch TV, we do the death scroll through our phone or whatever. You got to change that up, and it's an uncomfortable action. And by taking that uncomfortable action consistently, that becomes a habit. And once you build that habit, it becomes a lifestyle.
Dude,
right?
I had to pull this off the wall. So I keep this on the wall. One of my former coworkers here at the record label, they dated and wrote this too. But I keep this up every day.
Dude, 100%.
That's exactly 100%. It.
It's like that. These are the things. These are the small things, right? These little things. Everyone overlooks those little things, and they all look for that big. I need that big. What's the big solution, right?
Yep.
There really isn't a big. There's no big solution. It's these little things, and the most successful people, whether it's through weight loss, whether it's business, or whether it's the music industry, or motorcycles, or whatever they're successful with, they didn't get there with these giant leaps. These were small, consistent steps over time that built. You can't build a house without a hammer, but you can't put a house on it without a foundation.
Exactly.
Right. And those small steps, you have to build that foundation. And it's not hard. It's so much easier than people think.
It really is, dude.
But it's being consistent.
Yeah. The title track from the album is called just Giant Steps. And the chorus is, giant steps come by learning how to walk first. That's, you can't run these marathons if you don't have stable footing. You have to learn all of the tools to be the tradesman or the craftsman, You have to.
It's, I'm working with a couple of people with the EMDR stuff, right? And I went through the class last year, and worked with people in the class, worked with people after the class that were in the class, right? And I still have contact with a bunch of them, and we still bounce stuff off of each other. But I've really just started working with actual clients not too long ago. And those are small steps, right? So it's small steps to build and build and build towards something bigger. And you can, because there's no other way. There's no other way to do it, you know?
It's a perfect segue for my next question too, because the question I had written down, I said, "What?" And maybe maybe it's hard to lock in, but I wanted to know like what you would say the main issues or symptoms are that your clients are experiencing when they reach out to you for the first time. Is there like a couple commonplace things that people come to you with that are like, I need help dealing with this? Or is it really just like that variable of a case by case kind of thing?
It's pretty case by case because everybody's thing is different, right?
Yeah.
No two people like, you know, I'll just create an example. Like two complete strangers, two completely different people from different backgrounds, upbringings, you know, whatever, completely different, can experience the same sort of trauma, right? But that will manifest itself for them completely differently. So it's entirely individual and different thing, you know. The only thing that you can defend that I can say that just this, then this is just me, my experience saying it, and it's limited, my experience with it, right? Outside of myself, is that it manifests itself physically in certain ways that, you know, do you do any mindfulness practice? You know, do you have any mindful practice that you do, mindfulness, like a meditation or any of that stuff? Do you do any of that?
I've definitely tried to. I find that the best thing that I've been able to do for myself is like an intentionality thing where when I'm really like in the midst of shit, I'll kind of set myself this goal of like, when you wake up in the morning, no phone for an hour, and you either like read or listen to music, but avoid all the screens.
Okay,
And,
so
that's kind of my way of like decompressing if I don't have anything else.
So that's part of it. I mean, if you can sit and like, breath work is a big part of it. Like, you know, if you do a little bit of breath work and you can shift your focus internally and you do some grounding, you try to develop what we call a felt sense. And as you do that, you start to notice things in your body, different sensations, and things will come up for you. You know, you might have a tightness in your throat or a tightness in your chest. You might have something that you sense, you know, in your legs or in your feet, or so a lot of times you'll have something going on in the belly that you'll start to become aware of. And a lot of times, if you can focus on that, right, if you can become aware of it, you'll find that there's memory attached to that. And that memory will typically end up being some traumatic event or something disturbing. You know, we talk about having the big T and the little t. So big trauma and little trauma. What's the big trauma and what's the little trauma, right? And those things always somehow seem to find each other in the you know, the roadmap that is, you know, this freaking nervous system of ours.
Oh, no, right.
And so if you can latch on to one, and you'll usually be like the indicator that it'll give you the hints of where you find the other things going on within you. But it's an interesting practice. And the odd thing is that you learn all these little techniques that seem odd that really freaking work to like calm your nervous system or to process. So I'll give you one right here, right? You don't have to push hard. You just make little circles right there at that where your ear is. It's very calming. And you just keep going, right?
I can kind of understand that. Have you ever heard of gua sha?
No.
So my fiance is really into like skincare and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she taught me about is this practice called gua sha. And what they do is they use it's almost like this like very like elegant stone, and it has like a hard edge and like a rounded edge, and you essentially use it as like a massage tool. And so you just like you start scraping the hell out of yourself, and you can do it on like your head. There's all these different points, and they're supposed to alleviate certain symptoms you have, whether it's a skincare issue or like a digestive issue or whatever. And so she's tried it on me a bunch, and I've definitely noticed, like if I have like kind of a blocked sinus, she'll kind of hit the right spot a little bit, and it's like, oh, like maybe I am breathing a little better. So it was interesting what you said, because I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of that, where it's like understanding how these muscle frequencies all like interact with one another.
There's another one too, right? Which is bilateral stimulation. So you tap back and forth, and you'll find your own rhythm, right? So you can find your own rhythm there. The speed, the pace, how hard you tap. That's another one. And then there's all these other, there's a lot of them. And it's interesting because some of it's so simple, but it's so overlooked that people just don't think of it.
Yeah, so sometimes we're looking for the most complicated solution to an easy problem.
Right. So it's a lot of times it's much more simple than you believe. I try to give everybody a couple of little techniques, right? That they can do with themselves to help get through, like, if you get a bump in the road, or you hit a speed bump, whatever you want to call it, to give you something. A lot of people will have anxiety over things like, so you try to give somebody something they can do that won't draw attention to them, right? If you were in a meeting or something, if you were in a room and you were getting anxious or you had anxiety or something was going on, just little things. One of the other things is like counting backwards from 100 on your fingers, right? Like you use one hand, right? So that's another one. Because what happens is this action right here will distract you from the anxiety.
Could see
and it
that.
Will shift that, and it will shift your focus. It works, but people don't think of it, right? So you have these little things, these little techniques that you can do.
Yeah. Dude, it's funny. Even people in the chat, our buddy Ryan posted, he was like, I really like the second one. A couple of them are already trying them out.
Right? I got a million more. Reach out. We'll talk.
Well, that's you just segued to my next question. So if people want to inquire more about how to work with you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Just reach out. Go to my website and contact me right there.
For anybody that wants to, unbreakablecoach.com, you can see it scrolling right across the bottom. You can learn about everything that's going on.
You can find me on IG. You know what I mean? You can find me on the gram and send me a message. That's another way. I'm on Facebook. Facebook's just my name. But I also have Unbreakable Mentor on Facebook too. I don't go on that. do a lot on that page. I kind of cross post to it, but yeah.
So would you say the website's like the most direct way?
That's the most direct. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's going to email if you contact me through there, it's going to email me.
Perfect.
I'll get the notification on my phone, which is with me like always, like everyone else. My electronic.
So I wanted. Right. I know. I feel you. I'm trapped by mine all the time too. Do you have any important goals for this year, either for yourself or for like your coaching or art or anything like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question because I think one of the I'm working towards shifting away from working for somebody else to just solely working for myself, right? But it's again, like I said, with everything, it's those small steps, and it is small steps, right? So I continue to work for somebody else. I'm actually looking at working again in the motorcycle industry, because I know it, and I do enjoy it, and the people I enjoy as well. Well, most of them.
Yeah.
But that's my goal kind of for this year. As far as the art goes, I mean, we didn't really touch base on that much, but one of the other things that really helped me was the artwork, right? So there was that outlet too, that creative outlet. So you can't just, you have to focus on multiple things at once, really. So I focused on, the fitness, the diet, the nutrition, the mental health, the therapy for that, and just the artwork was a great outlet. And so I'm still doing that, right? So I still try to pick up the thing and draw at least something every day, kind of like when we were at the dealership. If you went to my desk, there was notepads there with like pen sketches nonstop, right? So I still do the same thing. So when I can't really sit down and do something either digitally or with markers or something, I'm constantly with a ballpoint pen on scrap paper. So, yeah, but it's this odd thing that I've always done.
It's good though. It's like a good sword to keep sharp,
It is. It is. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of a perishable skill. Like the more you practice, the more you do, the better you get. And you can definitely see the difference. So you want to kind of keep your chops up. But yeah, that I want to do a little more with that. I want to try to. Everybody's an artist. Everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a banker or if you're freaking, a guy who does sculpture. Everyone's an artist. Everything you do is an art form, and if you're truly like a carpenter or an architect, right? They're an artist. They're creating something with their talent, with their skill, and it's an art. And I think everybody has that. And I want to try to integrate that more into what I do. So when I have people that want to work with me, one of the things I want to do is try to bring that into it as well.
That would be awesome.
Which is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Because, everybody, I know so many people that say, oh, I can't draw, I can't do this, I can't. Like, yes, you can. You definitely can.
Yeah, it's like you can't do a lot of things until you start doing them.
Yeah, right. Like you couldn't do a podcast until you started it, until you did
Exactly.
it. you couldn't ride a motorcycle until you tried it the first time.
And it's like, you know how many podcasts I failed at before doing this one? And you know how many years I didn't have a motorcycle license before I finally got around to getting it? It's like,
Right.
you know, it's like these things kind of just, they happen when you're ready for them.
They totally do. They
Whether
totally
you realize it or not.
It's either when you're ready for them or when it's ready for you.
Yep.
You know, that's so it's an interesting but that's where it's kind of where I want to go. We'll see if I get there. I still have a whole year left to do this. So, and I'm not putting a time frame on it either. Like, I'm not trying to lock myself into a time, although I do know that by doing that, it locks you into making those steps, to doing that work.
Yeah.
Absolutely being there. So when I say within a year, absolutely. I really kind of want it to be sooner than that, but I mean, you also have to have, you know, a realistic view on it as well.
Oh yeah. Trust me, I live and breathe by deadlines, but I've also learned my harshest lessons in not believing that they're always going to happen when they happen. You know,
Right.
I was supposed to be a famous, not even famous. I was supposed to be a comfortable living musician by the time I was 30. I'm now 35 and still trying to figure it all out and have no idea what I'm going to do in life. But I'm making the best music I've ever made. I have some of the best friends I could ever have, and I'm gaining the experience I need to be the best person I could be.
You know what? We all have so much more than what we think we do. We really do. We're really, really fortunate. I mean, you know, first of all, look where we're sitting. Look where you're sitting. We're sitting talking. We're doing this, right? I mean, not everybody gets to do this.
No, I say it all the time. Yeah, like
cool.
Where my life was at a little, you know, like 15 years ago and where I'm at now, it's like there was a lot of chances I wasn't going to see today. And now I'm sitting at the headquarters for my record label, running a podcast, get to interview people every week. And it's like, you know, as challenging as things are right now, things could be so different. And so it's like, that's one of those things I'm constantly trying to practice, is just putting my optimism and my gratitude at the forefront. It took me a long time to get there, but the more work that I put into it, the more that I like feel the results from having that gratitude.
I mean, so one of the things that I've tried to do this year that I started this year, right? It's not like a resolution or anything, because I kind of don't buy into the resolution things because it never works out.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted to do this year was I'm keeping a gratitude journal.
Oh, that's cool.
So every day I'm trying to figure out, but it could be one thing, two things, but I like to shoot for five things that I'm grateful for on that day, right? And I try not to repeat the same things 2 days in a row, but I try to figure that out. What are those things? And by journaling it, right, it kind of holds me accountable to it, to put it down for that day, right? Otherwise, I feel like a schmuck if I don't, right?
You're just cheating yourself,
right? And I could do it because who else is going to know, right? But why am I going to cheat myself out of that?
Yep.
And the other thing is, my morning routine it's been pretty consistent. And I'll read every morning, whether it's a couple pages or a chapter or a page or a paragraph, but I'll read something. And I'm like, right now I've got like 4 books I'm reading like simultaneously. And I've got another 2 audio books that I keep going back and forth listening to. And they're all kind of on the same theme. There's a bunch of one's about public speaking, one of the books, One is positive quotations. That's a daily. So it's 365 days. And then there's a quote with a follow-up to it every day. You probably see me post those. I'll post pictures of those pages in Facebook. And then there's another book on EMDR from another practitioner's perspective that I've been reading. And then a long time ago, a really great friend of mine, and I haven't talked to her in a long time, but I tried reaching out and I haven't been able to get a hold of her. She gave me this book, and it was, remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay. It was written by his wife.
Oh, okay.
She put this book together of all these things that he used to talk about and things that he would say and quotes and things from him. And she gave me that book, and I don't remember ever opening it, but I found it because I was looking for something else. And this is going back a ways. And I opened it up, and she had written something to me in the inside, which was awesome. It was really heartfelt. And I was like, oh man. And so I found that, and then I started reading that. And that's like another one that some of them are more than a page long, but most of it's just like a page.
Yeah.
Or half a page with a paragraph of something that he said that was like, the wisdom of Mr. Rogers, and which is actually kind of amazing. Like he had all this insight into and so I do that. And as strange as it sounds, but pretty cool.
I think that's awesome. Talk about somebody who had the ideal level of like tolerance and patience. If anybody could teach us that lesson, it was likely to be Mr. Rogers.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And it's just look at change your perspective and you'll change your life. I say it all the time. I'll beat that horse forever, because it's true, and it changed my life. And other people I've seen, they've changed their perspective, and their lives have changed. And you can't look at everything. You can't look at everything from the same point of view and then feel like I need to change my life. Hey, Scott. And not change your perspective. Like if I want to change my life, I need to change my perspective. I can't approach change from the same position or same place that I've approached my life that has led me to this place I want to get out of. Because that path leads you right to that same spot, right? It just brings you right back to that same spot. So you need a new perspective.
Yeah,
you need to
absolutely.
Get a different point of view. And sometimes that's not easy. Sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes it's a challenge. I think most people get caught up in their lives and into the hamster wheel, right? We all get trapped on that hamster wheel. You go to work, you do your thing, you get your coffee, you go to the job, you do the job, you do the thing, you go home, you do your laundry, you have your dinner, you watch the news or you watch your sitcom or whatever it is, and you go to bed, and you get up the next day and you go through the same routine. Routines are good, but there's more to life.
Absolutely. I always remember this quote when I was a kid that somebody said, you can't do the same thing every day and expect different results. That's the definition of madness.
It's true. It's true. It is the definition of madness.
Man, dude, I can't thank you enough for doing this with me tonight. This has been awesome.
I can't thank you enough for asking me to do it. I was shocked when you reached out. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely doing that.
Oh, this is perfect. this is exactly what I wanted to use this platform for, was, it's conversations like this that people in, whether it's motorcycles or music or art or your friends or your family or whatever, it's like people aren't having these conversations and they don't have an awareness of how much is there to help them. And so to have an advocate for them is huge.
But there's so many things out there. Like I'll go with one more thing that I work with a group which came together in the most peculiar way. Like my friend Caroline was wanting to make more content for social media, like videos and YouTube. Didn't know how. She found this guy online on Facebook that was like starting this little group that was going to be content creation, and he was going to help people do YouTube videos because he was doing it. He knew how, and he was doing it. He wanted to help other people figure it out. So she said, "Hey, do you want to do some of this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll check it out." Right. So we met in person at this place up in Newburyport a few times, and it ended up being 4 of us. And that ended up taking this complete turn. He's Clark Webb. He has a website, the Sober Web. He's sober. He works with people that want to be sober, that want to change their relationship with alcohol, but AA may not be a good fit for them. It wasn't a good fit for him. He found another way to do it. So he's trying to help people through that. Carolyn is an energetic healer. She works with energy and healing and that stuff. And she's amazing. And our friend Heidi she's a research psychologist that worked with chimpanzees, teaching them sign language and stuff.
Wow.
And so we got this little group, and we're calling it the Core Coaching Alliance.
I like that.
We're trying to work on putting together some workshops to bring people in. And actually, when we do it, I'll shoot you a message and get you aware. And
I'll definitely be there.
Come check it out. That would be great.
I would love to.
It's just one more of those things, And I thought it was great. I thought it was kind of cool. It's like, okay, because we all 4 have different approaches towards different things, but ultimately it all comes down to the betterment of people's health, their mental health, their outlook on life, where you're going, how are you going to get there? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Dude, so is there any sort of like summarizing message or any like final words that you feel like would put a good like bow on the things that you've taught us tonight?
All I would say is this, is that if you are somebody that if you think that you have a mental health issue going on, don't concern yourself over the stigma, because if you mire yourself down and worrying about what other people are thinking, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Talk to somebody, reach out to somebody. It could be a friend, and it doesn't have to be a huge, massive issue either, right? It could be a small thing. Because those little things will end up being these annoying little things that bother you over time, right? And you'll build them into, if you allow your ego to build these things into these these little things, grow to these big things when they're really not big at all. Reach out to people. Reach out to someone. It's the best thing you can do, especially if you recognize it in somebody else. Maybe they don't recognize it in themselves. The best thing you can do for somebody else is just be there to listen. A lot of people don't. A lot of people just want to be heard. They just want to get that thing off their chest or whatever. To me, that's That's all I really have to say. You know what I mean? If you think you need help, get it.
Dude, I think that's
There's
so
a lot
important.
of it out there. There's a lot of resources now that didn't exist before.
Dude, you are so right, man. I can't
know?
thank you enough. That was awesome. If you guys want to learn more about what Jay has going on, if you want to inquire about his services, please check his website, unbreakablecoach.com, unbreakable_mentor on Instagram, at DiPietro_art on Instagram, and you can find him on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Jay, seriously, what an amazing conversation, dude. I hope we take the time to do this again, too. We definitely need to do it. We need a part 2 soon.
Okay, let's do it.
Everybody, if you want to see a part 2, start flooding the comments and let us know.
Absolutely. Oh, we can get into a whole lot more stuff, believe me.
Yeah, we got some stories to share too. We got some wild diatribes to pass.
We definitely do. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I'll definitely talk to you soon.
Yeah. All right, bro. Absolutely.
Thank you again so much, man. Have a great night.
I'll have a great night, man.
Man, thank you so much to everybody that tuned in tonight. Appreciate you guys all for jumping in the conversation. Huge thank you to my buddy Jay. This was an awesome conversation. One more time, make sure you guys check out unbreakablecoach.com. You can find out more about everything that he has going on, all of the tools and resources that he wants to share with you. Big thanks to everybody that jumped in the chat tonight. Ryan, always great to hear from you. Jen, Scott, everybody that was here, Jess, Carl, Adam, Star, too many people to name. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We've got a crazy schedule coming up. Next week on the show, we're going to have 2 comedians here. If you watched our previous episode with Andrew McGinnis, he's going to return, and he's also bringing Manchester comedy Danny P. So we talked about the Laugh Attic at Strange Brew. Danny P is the one who's hosting that now. So we're going to have both of them live here in studio. It's going to be a blast. Thank you guys so much. As always, please, if you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. All the subscriptions help us meet our benchmark that we're trying to grow. Once we get to a certain number, we'll be able to start doing more things with the channel and being able to provide for ourselves here at the studio and everything like that. As always, if you want to support me and support the show, one of the best things you can do right now, honestly, is just listen to Giant Steps in Gate City. Whether you get a CD from hellhoundpublishing.com, whether you stream it on your favorite streaming platform, whatever the case is, that's going to be the best way to support us. You can join Hellhound Publishing on patreon.com for as little as $1 a month. You'll get episodes of the podcast with no ads in them. Any music that comes out on Hellhound Publishing, you'll get a pre-release stream to listen to before it's available to the public. We're going to have all sorts of new content in 2025. So get in early while the dollar tier is still open. I can't thank you guys enough for everything. Let's keep this going, and much love, everybody. I will see you guys next Monday at 8 p.m. Thank you. Cody Central, out. Cody here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Cody Central. If you'd like to support the show and help me keep this thing afloat, please check out some of the options below. Thank you so much for supporting, and as always, subscribe, like, and comment.
Okay.